All right, welcome back to the Powers on Sports podcast. Glad you found us again. Remember, you can find us on all the platforms, Google, Stitcher, Spotify. Remember to tell your friends and colleagues. We are ready to ramp up into March Madness right around the corner. We're going to have tons of programming. We're going to do some cross-promotional stuff. And the king of cross-promotion is joining us once again, Mr. TJ Rives, sideline reporter for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He does the college basketball coast to coast podcast. He hosts a daily YouTube show, Bet USA college basketball YouTube show, where they talk about gambling on that night's games and such coming up. So welcome back, Mr. Rives.
It is always good to be with you. Thank you for the red carpet invite. And again, I often say this, I have more angles than a geometry book, and you and I know what that means because I'm married to an educator. Your sister's an educator. Lots of angles this time of year. I cannot wait for March. I know you're going to ask me too. The SEC basketball tournament is coming to our area. I know a lot of people hear this podcast in the Tampa Bay area. Some hear it elsewhere. But the March Madness is coming to Tampa Bay with the SEC basketball tournament with the likes of Kentucky and Auburn and Arkansas and Tennessee and the Florida Gators coming here. And then the NCAA tournament back in full force at all the different sites after a tournament last year around Indianapolis. We cannot wait. We cannot talk enough college basketball. I'm anxious about that. I have a feeling you're going to ask me a little bit about Buccaneers and free agency. Promise me that we can talk a little Miracle on Ice, Team USA hockey before we're done. I got a buffet, and I got to pick out on the buffet on Powers on Sports, my friend.
All right, real quick, have you finished your PK diet? You and Aaron Rodgers, PK.
Look, can I confess a little too much information? I had a colonoscopy last fall, and I can identify with like the 48-hour cleanse. Yes. But whatever that was from Aaron Rodgers about the full cleanse and all of the stuff, I've heard a couple different people put it out there. It's not mine. It's not original. We now know for certain after the information he's put out there, he is no longer full of crap in the short term because he cleaned it all out. Now, he may figuratively be full of crap with all the other stuff, but literally, man, all the cleansing of Aaron Rodgers and then that social media post and the only thing that I can say, because for all of us that are guys that are getting older, you need to be checked every which way, including the colonoscopy. You talk about cleaning out the plumbing. Good Lord, I can identify. To answer your question, I can definitely identify. Yes.
All right, let's get to the Olympics. The Olympics just wrapped up last week, Beijing. Not a lot of fanfare globally with the time difference, especially here in the United States. I don't know what your involvement was watching the Olympics, you and the twins and the family. You know, obviously the big story I'm going to ask you, just a quick story about all the hype around Michaela Schifrin. Didn't perform very well, DNF'd in 3 out of the 5 events, which was more disappointing than not winning a medals that she didn't finish and held most of the races. She was out of the race within 10 seconds.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Crazy. I mean, she's clearly the number one skier, U.S. skier, probably all time in all the medal hopes this year. Just your thoughts on Michaela Schifrin and that disappointment.
So we did watch it some in my house. Mrs. Rives big on this. I was kind of so. The twins were watching a little bit the half pipe snowboarding, watching Shaun White, watching Chloe Kim win the gold medals. They were into that. We were into the figure skating a little bit and all that controversy. We could spend an hour on that. What a debacle with the Russians. But you mentioned Schifrin. It's just the latest thing where, unfortunately, poignantly and awfully, she had the death of her father that she's dealing with. And you don't know. It obviously weighed on her some. You don't know how much that affected her, etc. But this is a very decorated skier that didn't win anything. It happens. It's happened famously to others that didn't win. So yeah, we saw some of it. I get the feeling you'll love this line. My line is, it's like those old Marines ads on TV, the few, the proud, and in print. We were the few, the proud that were watching because they lost 40% of their audience just from the last Winter Olympics in South Korea that were also time displaced, where it was nighttime when it was morning here, morning there is nighttime here. So they are suffering. They're suffering for a lot of reasons, and it doesn't look like it's going to get much better on the Olympics. Used to be a big deal to sit around and watch TV, but now there's so many choices and so many different things that are out there online and on TV. It's not going to be the same anymore.
I'll give her credit. She stood up to the mic every time after the post race. She said, "You know what? I blew it. Give her full credit, because so many other guys would either, or women would either talk, would give a cliche answer, would give a BS answer. She stood to the mic and she answered the questions.
Bravo to you for saying that as well, because there are so many that wouldn't do it. And if you saw the interview with the snowboard racer, and I don't have his name, from Michigan, but he ended up winning a team medal after his individual race ended. And the outpouring of, this was my big moment, I'm 40 years old, and he slipped and lost and didn't win a medal in the individual thing. We expect so much of these people, and then we want to stick a microphone, have the media coverage right there in their crushing moment. I mean, Michaela Schifrin sat there for like 5 minutes after she had the DNF in the one race where she missed the gate, got off the track. And then we want to stick a microphone in their face and immediately have them be raw and authentic. And it's just, it's tough. But yes, I agree with you. Bravo to her, because so many times they want to duck out and don't answer the bad questions, only celebrate the good and the glory. And there was plenty of that. I mean, NBC kept showing, these interviews with the athletes that had won. They're crying, they're happy, they're thrilled, they're talking to their family. And then we forget, for some of them, it's crushing that you've lost. You've worked for the last 2 or 3 years in anonymity, get to the biggest stage and don't win. So when they do answer questions about their heartbreak and their loss, I'm with you on that.
All right, 42 years ago,
Are you saying I'm old?
You're a little bit older than me. You're not much older than me, but you got me by a couple of years.
Yep.
Let's tell me your story about USA versus the USSR, 1980. Al Michaels on the call.
Oh,
give me your story.
Again, we don't have an hour here to go over this. Can I just tell you, as we begin, the hair on the back of my neck is standing up before we ever talk about this again. I've talked about it a couple times this week, and I'm happy to do it on the Powers on Sports podcast. So Tuesday, 2/22/22. On a Tuesday was the 42nd anniversary of the Miracle on Ice. You're a little younger, as you mentioned, so you don't really remember as much as a 10-year-old TJ remembers. I'm now giving you my age. I was 10 years old, 1980, late class of New York.
6 going on 7.
So you're in the first or second grade. You didn't care as much. Fourth grade, TJ cared more. So here's the deal. You all probably know something about the fact that the game was not live. It was on tape delay. So that night was a Friday night, Jason Powers. I remember it like it was last night. We're living in Chattanooga, Tennessee, to Chattanooga Choo Choo. My father is in the ministry. He's an associate pastor in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we had already pre-planned to go to an Atlanta Hawks basketball game about 90 minutes south of Chattanooga, right across the Georgia border into Atlanta, into the capital of Georgia, and go to the old downtown Omni in Atlanta. I'm speaking your language now, am I not? The old downtown Omni. So this obviously predates Trae Young and the current Atlanta Hawks. It predates the Dominique Wilkins Atlanta Hawks. Yeah. This is the Tree Rollins, Dan Roundfield, John Drew Atlanta Hawks. And I'm going so way back, I realize most of the audience now doesn't know who these people are without looking them up.
Brown is the coach.
Yes. So here's the Atlanta Hawks of the 1979-1980 season, which, by the way, Jason Powers, is the first rookie season of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird in that NBA season. Yes. The opponent that night is the Phoenix Suns. I remember this, again, like it was last night. Paul Westphal is on that team. Walter Davis, the Greyhound. Again, we're not speaking the language of the current NBA fan that identifies the Suns as Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul, or
Tom
not
Chambers.
Tom
Chambers,
Kevin
not
even in our era where we identify the Suns as Charles Barkley, Thunder Dan Marley, Kevin Johnson, early 90s, pushed the Bulls into the NBA Finals. This is the 1979-80 Phoenix Suns. Paul Westphal, Walter Davis, those guys on the Phoenix Suns.
Was that Cotton Fitzsimmons as the coach?
May have been. I think it may have been John McLeod, Cotton Fitzsimmons, but good memory. All right. So the Suns are in town. They're playing the Hawks. I'm there with my father. There's a couple of other dads and sons that are there. So the hockey game is on tape. We did know this. Again, folks, you just cannot fathom. No internet, no cell phones, no way to find out about the game that's not being live televised as it's happening, except on the radio, basically. And the radio telling you. Or the wire service telling you if you worked in a newsroom, worked in a newspaper, worked in a television newsroom. So the game is not being shown live, to be shown tape delay a couple of hours later at 7 Eastern time, USA and the amateur players against the Russians. And you can't emphasize enough, I remember this so vividly, they were given no chance to win this game because the Russians had clobbered them in a pre-Olympic tournament game at Madison Square Garden, had scored like 9 goals on them. There was no expectation, Jason, that they would be able to win this game. So it was almost kind of like an afterthought. All right, we're in the Omni in Atlanta. The game gets underway. And in the first quarter of the game, it's now probably 7:15, 7:30, which means it's the third period of the hockey game.
Because that hockey announcer game started at like 5 o'clock.
Correct. So the
Eastern
PA announcer
time
comes on in the first period, first quarter of the 4-quarter basketball game and says, ladies and gentlemen, we have an update from Lake Placid, New York, that the United States and the Soviet Union are tied 3-3. Everybody, ooh, ah. Well, it's going, okay. The game goes on, the basketball game, the Hawks, Tree Rollins, Paul Westphal goes on. And about 5 minutes later, the PA announcer again in a timeout or a stoppage of play says, ladies and gentlemen, we have an update from the United States Olympic hockey game. The United States leads the Soviet Union with 4 minutes to go, 4-3. Applause. Applause goes up in the arena. Jason, as I remember, there's probably about 7,000 or 8,000 people at the game. The Omni is not full. It's probably about half full on a Friday night, 1980. So about 5 minutes later of actual time, there's a stoppage in play. There's a dead ball. The ball's out of bounds. There's a foul, something. The PA announcer says, ladies and gentlemen, we have an update again from Lake Placid, New York. The United States has defeated the Soviet Union 4-3 in the men's hockey semifinal game. When he says that, the hair on the back of my neck standing up, brother. When he says that, the whole arena stands to its feet and begins to applaud. A standing ovation around the arena with a USA, USA chant. The players on the court, I vividly remember Dan Roundfield, Tree Rollins, Paul Westphal. These guys are clapping. The referees are clapping.
Wow.
Everybody on the benches is up, standing up, clapping. It seemed like to a little kid that went on for 10 minutes. It probably went on for about 30 to 60 seconds of a standing ovation 1,500 miles or more away to the south of Lake Placid, New York, in the Omni in Atlanta. Again, as I led into, I remember it like it was last night. Incredible to be part of that and remember that distantly. And again, we couldn't see it. Yeah. We're in Atlanta. We're driving back after the game. I never saw the game live as they reran it on tape delay on ABC that night.
Right.
And of course, the word had gotten out like, hey, they've won the game. Get to a TV and watch Al Michaels and Ken Dryden calling it on ABC tape delay. By the time you got to the TV at 8:30, 9 o'clock, you could see the third period. You could see the finish.
And Al Michaels, who we didn't know was Al Michaels at the time.
That's right.
He was just a guy.
He had been doing some Major League Baseball play-by-play on the radio. He had been doing some college football on ABC.
Yep.
Had done some freelance stuff. And they put him on hockey, and he had never done a hockey game until those Olympics. He learned on the fly how to call hockey and international hockey. And what an incredible night and what an incredible moment to call that game. So you can go back and relive on the internet, on YouTube, all of that. But that is where I was that night. And I take that with me 42 years later. I will probably take that with me forever. So I kick it back to Mr. Powers on sports. Did I deliver on the story?
Great story.
How did I do on the story?
The vivid memories of the players clapping as well. That's the cool part. I mean, that really is the cool part.
Unbelievable that I'm talking about. The game stopped. They're clapping. The referees are clapping. It was crazy in that arena with the USA, USA chant.
And here's the other thing to remember. That wasn't the gold medal game. They had to then beat Finland in the final. They were losing 2-1 going to the third period versus Finland. And then you have the famous Herb Brooks speech to the players in the dressing room between the second and third period saying, if you don't win this game, you'll go to your effing graves. And they go out and win the game in the third period to win the gold medal. That wasn't the gold medal game.
That's right. And it's one of the great misconceptions about that upset of all time is if they don't win the Sunday gold medal matchup with Finland, that's a footnote that they beat the Russians in the semifinal, but then didn't win the gold medal and took a silver or something like that. Just stories that we remember, brother. And I just thought I would share that with you since it's anniversary week. I'm looking out for the Powers on Sports podcast because you love the Uncle TJ stories. So there's an Uncle TJ story.
We do. All right, let's get before I get to the NFL, I want to get your thoughts. Juwan Howard situation Sunday in Madison versus Wisconsin. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure you have. Juwan Howard gets into a little discussion, into a heated, animated discussion with the Wisconsin coach Greg Gard. They have to be separated. Then all of a sudden, Juwan Howard slaps, whatever you want to call it, one of the assistant coaches at Wisconsin. Juwan Howard is suspended for vague 5 games, which, I mean, we'll talk about your thoughts, but there was a brawl. Some Michigan players get suspended.
He ignited a full-out swinging, punching brawl between his guys and the Wisconsin guys, no question.
And again, he's putting on a full court press with 20, 30 seconds left in the game. Wisconsin calls the timeout to advance the ball to midcourt to avoid a 10-second violation. We can talk about the coaching. I'm not worried about the coaching strategy of that. Your thoughts on Juwan Howard? What do you think? It was a fair punishment? Not fair?
Yes.
What do you think?
I think it's right in line. I thought it would be like 3 games or the rest of the regular season, 5 games for him. You can't do that. And he's a repeat offender. He had done this in the Big Ten tournament last year, not a punch, but yelling and screaming at the Maryland coach, Mark Turgeon, who's another knucklehead, hothead. But you can't do that. If you're the head coach, you've got to be the leader. You've got to be composed. And I can't emphasize enough. I have watched this throughout my career working USF, University of South Florida in Tampa Bulls basketball for 10 years, doing it nationally on Fox Sports Radio, on Sirius XM, on TuneIn, broadcasting live games nationally, tournament games. Losses can be crushing. But the thing is, sportsmanship should still be part of this and be better. Be better on this. Again, Howard is 1,000% to blame here. He's the one full court pressing, as you mentioned at the end of the game, which is idiocy. I call it sore loser idiocy. That's the term I'm using. I'm repeating it on the Powers on Sports podcast. If you're going to be a sore loser,
I agree
about this stuff, and then you're going to throw the first punch. I mean, people were saying earlier in the week, well, Greg Gard is really to blame for calling the timeout. No, he's not. He's reacting to a guy full court pressing his walk-ons behind by 15 points with 15 seconds left.
Right.
That was his reaction, which he's entitled to do. Call timeout, calm it down. And Gard, by the way, I am 1,000% convinced of this, was trying to explain that to Juwan Howard. Hey, I took the timeout because you were still pressing. Right. Even more damning for Juwan Howard as I go off. You can tell I'm passionate about this. Even more damning is he sat in the news conference after the game and was point blank asked, why were you putting on the full court press? And he lied. We were not pressing them. You are lying. You were absolutely pressing them. And that's what set up the whole igniting of that situation. So I would think at this point with the athletic director, Ward Manuel at Michigan, the Big Ten conference with Kevin Warren, they have made it clear, not just publicly, but privately, you can't ever do anything like this again. You're going to be fired for cause. You're a repeat offender already. You're supposed to be in a leadership role. Whatever anger management issues you have, you need to address it. Because you can't be behaving like this, wearing Michigan colors and representing the Big Ten in a Big Ten basketball game. So there are my thoughts. I don't believe Greg Gard deserved a suspension.
I don't either. No.
Now, players that are throwing punches, there's specific rules about that. One of the Wisconsin players got a game, and I think 2 or maybe 3 Michigan players got games. And now Michigan's got to play the next 5 games here, and a lot of them are at home, and 2 or 3 of them are big ones. They get Ohio State in a rematch. Later in the year, they get Iowa in a rematch at home.
Illinois.
They're trying to get back to the NCAA tournament bubble and relevance here without Juwan Howard. What a mess. What a mess that it takes away. But let me just give you something real quick, and then I know you want to move on. Because we could talk about this subject again for another.
I want to give you my couple thoughts. I got a couple thoughts.
Please on this. But there were several crazy ending games. Villanova, UConn on a Tuesday night. Crazy end to Boise State and San Diego State with foul calls and controversy. And I know a lot of these coaches now realize we're under the microscope. We got to be on our best behavior. But everybody behaved. Everybody shook hands. Heartbreaking loss. Bad call maybe. Good sportsmanship can rule the day. I'm done. I'm off the soapbox. You go for it.
If you're an adult college basketball coach that has been doing this a long time, if you can't have the whatever, nobody says you have to sit there and talk to the other coach, shake the guy's hand and keep walking. You don't have to be happy with him. You can be as mad as you want with him. You can try to run the score up the next time you play him.
That's right.
2 things on Juwan Howard. 1, if Juwan Howard was so offended by Greg Gard, why didn't he slap Greg Gard? He slaps a meaningless a third assistant on the bench He didn't push Greg Gard. He didn't try to swing on Greg Gard. If you're so offended by Greg Gard touching you, which is what he said,
Right.
oh, he violated my space and I was fearing for my safety, which is a bunch of bull. Why didn't you swing at Greg Gard, number one? Number two, I don't like that he only gets 5 games. He should not be coaching the rest of this season. He should not be afforded the opportunity, if Michigan were to win a couple more games, to coach in the Big Ten tournament and, more importantly, the NCAA tournament. I think it's a bad look for them. Suspend him for the rest of the year, however many games that is. That's my in fairness, because he's a second offender. Because he's a
repeat offender. In fairness, if they fall apart here over these 5 games, he may only coach 1 game in the Big Ten tournament, and that's it. They may not even be an NIT team.
But right now,
you're saying on the premise of he should not coach the rest of the year.
I agree, because right now, I just you look at different guys. Joe Lunardi has him as one of the last 4 teams in the tournament. So if they were to go 3-2 the rest of the way,
right,
and win 1 game in the Big Ten, they're probably going to get in. So I don't think he should have the ability and the honor to coach them in the NCAA tournament if they make it. That's
what about the argument that 5 games is roughly 1/6 of the regular season, and it is a stiff punishment? It's more than
he's lucky he didn't lose his job.
Well, right, as a repeat offender, and I don't believe it rose. I don't believe it rose to being fired. That's my opinion. You seem to think that maybe it did, but clearly now things are in motion. You can't ever do anything like this again. And Juwan Howard may decide, I don't want to be a college coach, because in the NBA, you can get away with some other things with paid professionals. But as a leader of college, it's a great debate topic. It's a great debate topic. Go ahead.
If Juwan Howard wasn't a Michigan guy, I don't think he's the coach.
If he was an outsider, not part of the Fab Five of the Michigan family,
I think he's fired, personally.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's been a hot button topic all week. And I'm not so sure they don't swoon here. Maybe they respond to Phil Martelli, who's a former 500-win coach at St. Joe's as the assistant. Maybe they respond to him. I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Brian Flores gets a job in the NFL. I think it's good, great. But Pittsburgh Steelers, again, the Rooney Rule kind of came out of Pittsburgh. Flores is suing the NFL. Guy well, Mike Tomlin. Right. Hires him to be the assistant head coach, linebackers coach. Your quick thought on that?
So we go from one hot button controversial topic right into another one. Again, we don't have an hour to sit here. Obviously, the NFL's hiring practices with minorities is disgraceful. That's the word that I will use. You look at the NBA, which is equal to the NFL in the terms of the number of black athletes that play the sport. Yet it is laughable how few NFL black head coaches there have been and are, versus the NBA has 10 at any given time. And coaches get a second and the third opportunity at another NBA stop that they don't get in the NFL. The NFL has got to be better. Brian Flores is trying to shed light on that. I think there are holes in some of the arguments that he's making about how he supposedly has a smoking gun with Bill Belichick's text message. Well, when you go back and review stuff, they had on the timeline and the dates, they had already talked with Brian Flores, but they had not talked yet with Brian Daboll because the Buffalo Bills had been in the playoffs. They hadn't formally met with him.
Right.
So those are important things in the facts on being passed over there. Again, we won't get into all of the back and forth. Clearly, he's got a point on the issue. And the class action part of this with others joining in is maybe going to make the NFL wake up. And the larger point is they've got to have better hiring practices, and they've got to have more black general managers and more high-level black executives that are willing to give the black assistant coach, the black coordinator, the same chance. I mean, when you're looking at Daboll with the Giants, and help me with the other names of the Mike McDaniel, the receivers coach who took Flores' job in Miami. There's a couple of other ones off the top of my head. Kevin O'Connell that got the
Minnesota
Vikings job off the Rams. I know they just won the Super Bowl. All of those guys are
Eberflus, Chicago.
Eberflus, who was the defensive coordinator in Indianapolis. All right, that's 4 names. Nathaniel Hackett,
Denver,
the son of Paul Hackett in Denver, is a coordinator. All 5 of those names have never been a head coach before. They're being given their first opportunity. 5 of them in this hiring cycle.
Right.
And yet not one black assistant coach got the first time chance to be the head coach, whether it's Byron Leftwich here in Tampa Bay, whether it's Eric Bieniemy with the Chiefs. Raheem Morris is trying to get another job interviewing,
Right.
doesn't get a chance.
Flores
Jim
doesn't
Caldwell's trying to get an interview, doesn't get another chance. Brian Flores is a proven head coach in Miami, doesn't get another chance.
Right.
It looks horrible for the NFL. So
it is a bad look.
They've got to do something. That lawsuit is controversial. And let's hope the hiring practices improve, because it's maybe going to take something like this for the NFL to understand you cannot let teams continue to do. I mean, the New York Giants deserve to be called out. The New York Giants have been in existence for 92 seasons. They've never had a full-time black head coach. 3 times now in a row, the New York Giants have hired an unproven white coordinator. Bang, bang, bang. Instead of giving a black head coach, previous head coach, or a black assistant or coordinator. I mean, that's inexcusable. And maybe the NFL, again, this is just world according to TJ, needs to look at stronger penalties like losing a first-round draft pick. Right. Like for every year that you make a coaching hire and it's not a minority after you have such an awful record on minority coaches, maybe you start taking away draft picks. They're adding draft picks to teams that do the hiring.
Right.
So maybe you come back in and take draft. I don't know what the answer is, but it's got to be something. And it's got to be more black general managers and more black higher level executives that do the hiring, because then you'll see what you have in the NBA, where there are far more team presidents, GMs that do the hiring that are black and are hiring black coaches.
And as we transition to the Buccaneers, give the Buccaneers full credit. They've been very progressive in this area over the years, as far as Raheem Morris, Lovie Smith.
3 of them.
Yep, they've given
Tony
lots
Dungy.
of, Bruce Arians has been very proactive in giving females opportunities on the coaching staff, coordinator opportunities to Leftwich and Todd Bowles and others. So give the Buccaneers credit. They get killed on a lot of things, but give them credit in this.
And bravo to the Glazer family, Malcolm Glazer originally, the sons and sister Darcy, because they've hired 3 full-time black head coaches while the New York Giants have hired none.
Right.
While the Dallas Cowboys have hired none.
Right.
While the Green Bay Packers have never hired a full-time black head coach.
Right.
So the Glazers have had 3 of them in the last 25 years and 2 of them in the last 10 years or so. A much better record. I agree.
Yep. All right, let's get to the Buccaneers and a couple free agent things. Critical next 2 weeks probably on the calendar for the Buccaneers and most teams. The NFL season starts, new league year starts, I think, March 15th. The franchise tag is due on the 8th of March, as far as you got to declare if you're franchising anybody. What is your sense of what are the thoughts going through the Buccaneer front office, as far as, do we try to go for a big fish, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson potentially? Do you lay low? Maybe Tom Brady changes his mind in a month. Who knows? What are your thoughts of what the Buccaneers are thinking?
I believe priority 1 is Chris Godwin. He's never going to hit the free agent market. He's going to end up getting the franchise tag here over the course of the next 10 days or so, if they can't come to a long-term deal. And again, we're not going to go into, for another 20 minutes, all the nuances of the salary cap, but the simplest explanation is, if you are getting a long-term deal, you're getting a massive signing bonus check right now, huge check right now. So that's in Chris Godwin's favor to do a long-term deal with the Bucs on that. But they're going to protect him first and foremost. And even if they have to franchise tag him again, this is world according to TJ. I'm not getting this from the Buccaneer building. Then what do you do with Ryan Jensen at center?
Yep.
Would he be a franchise tag candidate?
Carlton Davis.
I don't know on that name, the defensive back Carlton Davis. What do you think? Is he a legit franchise tag candidate? Is he that big of a lockdown cover corner that you can't find somebody else and you would want to give him $15 million a year, or whatever the average is for the highest end for a season?
The only thing I would say is that was the weakness of the team. It seemed like on defense was the back end. So do you let your best guy, who you think's your best corner on the back end of a weakness, go? That would be the one debate I would have. Chris Godwin is injured, ACL recovery. I think you could sign Chris Godwin to a longer term deal, maybe get a little hometown discount because he's injured a little bit, and maybe franchise Carlton Davis. I don't think Jensen's a candidate to be franchised. I think he'll either resign or be gone. And a big
question on this point, and we've debated it, and it's been kicked around in our market. It's been kicked around nationally. If Tom Brady is here, a lot of these guys would take less money to come back.
Right.
And so Tom Brady now has announced he's retired. We believe that's going to be followed through on, and he's not going to play anymore, and he's not playing here.
Yeah.
So how many of these guys want the big bucks if they're not playing with Tom Brady? Whether you're talking about Jensen, whether you're talking about Carlton Davis, whether you're talking about Leonard Fournette,
Yep.
Jason Pierre-Paul and Dominican Sue, all the list of all the names. You can't keep all of these guys at this point. So you got to prioritize. I believe Godwin is priority 1. You make a good point that Davis may be priority 2, Jensen priority 3. I want Leonard Fournette back too at whatever you can get him re-signed for. And again, the Buccaneers can re-sign their own free agents before that March 15th date that you're talking about, or whatever the actual free agency beginning. They can start doing those right now if they're able to swing it and make moves. So let's see what Jason Light, Mike Greenberg on that salary cap, John Spytek, all those guys in conjunction with Bruce Arians and the coaching staff, what they prioritize. Godwin's going to get paid a ton of money.
Yep.
And I have no problem giving him 30, 40, 50 million guaranteed. He deserves it because he's going to play, all things being equal, he's going to play 5-7 more years at the highest level. Give him a ton of money right now on Chris Godwin. Love that guy.
We go to the combine where a lot of these deals get done behind the scenes, agents and all that stuff. We'll wrap you up here. You think the Bucs are big quarterback hunting at the combine?
How do we know? But I mean, they pulled Tom Brady out of the hat 2 years ago around combine time. If I can get that out, I don't know. And I'm not buying into this trade for Russell Wilson thing. I just don't think the Seahawks are going to ultimately get rid of him and give him up. Is it Jimmy Garoppolo in the conversation because San Francisco is looking to deal him? I see you shaking your head. No,
please.
I don't know. I don't know what that move is, but in Jason Light, Bruce Arians and company, I trust. Including if they say to us, Kyle Trask is worth the shot here, we're giving him the shot. I trust that as well. They would know better than the rest of us. And I don't think that's the worst idea in the world for on-field attempt at being good, if not really good. And it's a cheaper opportunity to do this, Jason Powers. He doesn't cost as much as a second-round pick. So you can re-sign some of the other pieces around if you're not paying 20, 25, 30 million for the quarterback.
Last question, you're done. If they do go to the Kyle Trask route, do you think Bruce Arians retires?
I think Bruce Arians is back. I think he's back, and he would try it with Kyle Trask and with whatever else they have.
Yeah.
Again, maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think if he was not going to be back, he would have already said so. Let's see. It's a great what if right now, and we don't know the answers on who is the quarterback and who else comes back on this team. This team's got a lot of pieces in place still signed. So
there will be a lot of quarterback shuffling around the NFL in the next month. There will be probably 8 to 10. There will probably be 8 to 10 quarterback moves in the next 30 days that will impact teams.
And it is not a great quarterback draft, a great quarterback draft. And that's another reason why you'll see the shuffling before the late April draft. But we will find out, my friend, on these. Great questions to get answered. So I'm excited to see all of this for sure.
Tell everybody one more time where they can find you all over.
Oh, it's a myriad of places. Thank you for having me here again daily, talking on the BetUS College Basketball Show. They need to use your promo code off this podcast, Powers22. Use the promo code if you are looking to wager on March Madness. They've got a bonus going right now with that promo code where your initial deposit is matched up to 125%. You put $100 in, you get 125 back. You put 200 in, you get 250 back to gamble with if you want on the March Madness stuff, on all your plays, on all your upsets. So use that promo code. I'm doing a daily show with them Monday through Friday, 1 Eastern time, tons of college basketball. BetUS.tv is the easiest way to find it in all of their social media channels. BetUS website, BetUS.tv as well. So thank you for that. And College Basketball Coast to Coast is the podcast and the live tune-in channel, separate from the BetUS gambling angles. Tons of college basketball coming in March, including Jason Powers involved with that. I've got coaches, former coaches, analysts, all kinds of people. We talk nonstop college basketball all the way through the NCAA tournament and the Final Four in New Orleans on that channel, College Basketball Coast to Coast, wherever you get podcasts. And on TuneIn, search College Basketball Coast to Coast. The channel's right there. Streaming on TuneIn 24 hours a day for free. Cannot wait.
He doesn't want to tell you, but TJ will have a show Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every weekend of March Madness. All 4 days.
And I'm looking forward to having you help me with that as well. I'm going to need some help. It's going to be a labor of love. But again, the Madness is back, and the SEC basketball tournament is coming to our market, to the Tampa Bay market and the Amalie Arena. So I'm anxious for all of this, my friend. It's going to be exciting.
TJ Rives, thank you. Don't be getting back on that PK fasting, please. Enjoy your spring break. You got spring break plans?
Chick-fil-A drive-through might be in my future, might or might not be in my future. Just saying here on the Powers on Sports podcast, free plug for them.
There you go. All right, sir. Be good. We'll talk to March. We'll talk to you here real soon. I know. And tell the twins and the missus we said hello.
They're going to be basketball widows coming up with the college basketball. Always great to be on the Powers on Sports podcast. Thank you, brother.
You got it. We'll be right back, folks. And have a great rest of your day.